Hi everyone. So the Depp defamation trial has concluded in Fairfax, Virginia, which incidentally I went to back in 1999. That's beside the point. But Johnny Depp has won the case. Um, that result is not overly surprising, but I think it's still big news. Honestly, for a brief period, I thought that there'd kind of be like in a boxing match, when you talk about the underdog, I kind of thought that there would be some strange quirk where Amber Heard would actually win. But Johnny Depp's won, and I have to say, my gut feeling is it is the right outcome. Now, there's a lot to talk about with this one, so it might be a longer video. Bear with me. Feel free to multitask. But I do think it's an important issue. I've never saw this as just a celebrity story. And I'm going to lay out some of the reasons why. I should say Depp was awarded 15 million in damages, so that was 10 million in compensation and 5 million in punitive damages. Amber Heard actually got 2 million as well because the jury found that Depp's lawyer had defamed her, but really it's a lot less than what Depp got. So Depp is being seen rather simplistically, I guess, as the winner of the case. Um, there will be some people who say that actually it should go further. Amber Heard should be arrested for her abuse. I don't think that's ever going to happen because I think this case has been so messy and so complex that both parties now will just want to move on. I'd be surprised if they didn't. So, um, these are some of the things that I think are worth considering. I posted this on my Facebook page, so I'm just gonna read out the sort of 7 points I'd like people to consider. Um, yeah, 7. So I'm just gonna read out what I've written on my Facebook page. This has probably been the most high-profile celebrity legal case since those of Michael Jackson in the 2000s. But justice and due process is a serious thing, and the wider implications have meant that this is not just a celebrity story. Yeah, so if you look at it as Amber Heard herself put it, the Johnny Depp show, or it's two squabbling actors, then yeah, it does look trivial and sensationalistic, and the sort of thing that would be on any American talk show, or National Enquirer, or tabloid fodder. This has been covered in serious newspapers as well, because it is a serious issue. Take away all the memes, take away all the mudslinging, take away all the back and forth. What you're left with is two people who've had a very turbulent relationship. They're both very much in the public eye, particularly the man in this case. He's a Hollywood A-lister. Um, and actually, I think it's all quite sad. Um, although I think it's the right outcome, I think it's not so much a jubilant occasion. It's good for Mr. Depp in that he was the rightful party. But I don't think people should get pleasure from it because it's ultimately the whole thing is just sad. Any breakdown in a relationship is sad, and even now I don't hate Amber Heard. I don't have much respect for her, but I don't hate her anyway. It shouldn't be seen as just a celebrity story because there are wider implications, particularly how gender is involved. But I'm going to get into those in the following points. Um, Although the basis of this case brought about by Depp was defamation, it also brought about important debate and consideration of how gender roles are considered in domestic violence. Um, Amber Heard has been proven to be a manipulative abuser. I'm going to have to edit that sentence I've just repeated, considered there. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's easy to forget that actually the basis of this case is defamation. It's not about violence itself, it's about the defamation side of it, namely Amber Heard's op-ed in the Washington Post. Now, her team always said that because she didn't name him directly, that therefore makes it okay. But really, it's not difficult to work out that she was referring to Depp. So the jury, they saw that, and they saw it was defamatory because when it comes down to it, all the claims put against Depp, what do they add up to? They add up to some very unpleasant text messages sent by Depp to Paul Bettany. They add up to footage of him slamming cupboards, and they add up to alleged injuries that Miss Heard had, which mysteriously appeared days after the alleged events, which have been proven have been doctored. That's basically the weight of her evidence. That is it. Um, by contrast, the audio clearly shows Heard being abusive and violent, not denying her violence. It clearly shows Depp's injuries. And I think that all of the photos of the two parties, Depp's are more convincing. And she has a track record. She was abusive to former partners. Her false claims that Depp was have been proven just that, false. She tried to imply that he was abusive to Kate Moss. It turned out that what actually happened was she slipped down the stairway during a storm in Jamaica. So, if you really, really look at this objectively, the evidence his team presented is just far more credible. The third point's important. I quite like Depp as an actor and a number of his films, but I've never approached this as a fanboy. I don't think JD, Johnny Depp, is totally squeaky clean in all of this, but the evidence strongly indicated he was the party that tried to de-escalate and was predominantly the victim in the turbulent relationship. If it takes an A-list Hollywood actor to bring awareness of abuse against men, that is overdue. So, if we're being honest, there will be some Johnny Depp fans who are just blind in their support of Depp. They'll support him no matter what. I've never liked that sort of super fandom for anyone. The same thing happened in the Michael Jackson case. Those sort of super fans cannot be objective because they think that they know the person personally. And maybe they met them, maybe they spoke to them. But they can't know what goes on behind closed doors. So I never wanted to associate myself with that sort of mentality. But I think a lot of people who have looked at this have looked at it objectively. I've just got notifications. I'm just getting rid of it. Have looked at this objectively. I mean, certainly, I have seen a lot more of Depp films. I've seen one or two Amber Heard films. I saw years ago All the Boys Love Mandy Lane, which was sort of a B horror movie. Don't even remember it very well. I want to watch The Rum Diary now for obvious reasons. Just it's an interesting dynamic. It's the only film that they both starred in together. But yeah, I've seen a lot more Johnny Depp films. I mean, I can think of at least 12 Johnny Depp films I've seen. He's one of the biggest names in Hollywood. There's no question about that. But I've never been a super fan of anyone. Um, okay. There has been a lot of immature and, in my view, unhelpful posts and memes, predominantly from Depp fans, edited testimony mocking her witnesses and crude depictions of Amber, I quote, Amber Turd. I think women like Amber Heard should face accountability for their actions. Indeed, it could be fairly argued she should also face legal consequences for her violence and proven lies beyond the fines. But I don't think these crude memes help anyone. Yeah, I mean, that's been a big part of this case. It's been going on for 7, 8 weeks now. And let's be honest, a lot of it was just immature, crude. The whole thing about her body language. I think it's legitimate to question that. I do, despite what feminists say. Actually, body language is relevant. Um, but when it gets to the point of people are producing T-shirts and memes, and they forget that we're talking about a real couple here and real people. It's just I don't have much time for that sort of um, desensitizing of a serious subject. I just think, I mean, some of it I guess is quite witty, but yeah, I don't think it particularly helps anyone. And actually, it galvanizes those who say that there's misogyny at play, which I don't agree with, but I think it galvanizes them. Okay. Even now, some feminists will insist Step one because he is a powerful man. The same people don't consider the stigma of men falsely accused of abusing women. The implications for Depp being dropped immediately from very lucrative franchises were very real. Amber Heard did not lose his case because she is a woman standing up to a powerful man, but because the jury, male and female, determined the evidence strongly weighed against her. These feminists need to grow up and stop looking at the world through the misandrist lens. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the attitude of people like Dr. Charlotte Proudman and the journalist Katie Edwards, their whole thing, sorry, not journalist, I think she's a professor, but they commented on this case. The whole angle I mean, The Guardian absurdly was claiming that Amber Heard can now look to be a campaigner. I don't think so. She's lost her credibility. But I really don't like the lack of objectivity from certain feminists. Their whole worldview is misandrous, basically, because their attitude is she's a woman, he's a man, she must be telling the truth. In this case, you totally dismantle the nonsense of believe all women, because it totally takes away the very principle of due process. So um, I don't think that a self-described feminist lawyer like Dr. Charlotte Proudman could claim to be objective on this because she's not. She will always look at it, no matter what, as Amber Heard, the woman, she's defending herself against a powerful older man. Yeah, she must be innocent. I mean, they just ignore common sense. For example, if a man wearing heavy rings punches a woman in the face, there would be much more significant damage than what her team presented. That's just common sense. So I do hope it basically shines a light on their misandry. The case should put some caution whenever a high profile man is punished by being blacklisted in his industry before even due process. Of course, this does not mean every such man is innocent, but maybe big organizations like Disney respect due process. I honestly think Disney owes Johnny Depp an apology now that this outcome has happened. Now that a jury of their peers has made this decision, I think Disney should reflect and think we got it wrong. We shouldn't have blacklisted Johnny Depp. Give the man an apology. Um, Compensation, even. That's probably unlikely, but at the very least, they should give him an apology. At the very least, they and other companies as well, Hollywood studios and so on, should consider how they approach these things. There's a British actor, Adam, I forget the guy's name, but he's now suing his production company, I forget which one he's involved in, because they dropped him because he was accused of rape. Um, Here's the bottom line: an accusation does not equate to guilt. An accusation does not equate to guilt. An accusation does not equate to guilt. That should be the mantra, not believe all women. So, yeah, I think that the way these cases are handled, this is not to say all these men are innocent. I think certainly Harvey Weinstein, the evidence against him was very strong, and Bill Cosby. But there does seem in the Me Too era to have been a very large number of men accused and then they're dropped. I think that's wrong, and I think people need to be more objective in how they perceive this. I'm not saying just believe that the men are innocent, but at least look at it objectively. At least respect due process. And I do not believe a man should be stigmatized or blacklisted or treated differently because he's faced accusations. If he's found guilty in a court of law, yeah, then he deserves to face justice. But otherwise, I think this case really shines a spotlight on that. I remember when these accusations first began, even Johnny Depp was treated like a pariah in the industry, so it has to end. Amber Heard has proven she has no right to represent abused women. I don't hate her, but I think she should be accountable for her lies. However, not every case is like Depp Heard. Violence against women is a very real problem. Too many women live in fear of the thug husband's boyfriend. Of course, the case highlights that there should be more support for abused men too, and not double standards on the outcome. But realistically, the number of women killed by men far, far outweighs the number of men killed by women. I mean, we can look at that in the UK. In a given year, the number of women who are murdered by their partners or die from injuries, it's far, far higher than the number of men who die in the same circumstances. That's not to say it never happened. There was an awful case a few years ago where a woman basically put acid in her boyfriend's face. Now that's just as evil as anything an abusive husband or boyfriend does. But the truth is, the ratio is not the same. And I think it's wrong for men's rights activists to try and insist that it is. But it's also true that emotional abuse is much harder to gauge, and probably there's a lot more men who are involved in emotionally abusive relationships. Certainly, I think denying access to children should be considered emotional abuse. Absolutely. But the number of men who die at the hands of women, it's you could probably count it on one hand. So let's be honest about that. It's not the same ratio. And in parts of the world, in Latin America, certainly in sub-Saharan Africa, in many parts of the world, the way women are brutalized is absolutely horrifying, and it's not an equilibrium. Um, Abuse and violence from men or women is wrong, and all domestic violence survivors need support. But this case should neither be used to downplay the reality of violent men or doubt genuine women victims. Rather, it should remind us such cases are not always black and white and should be approached on the evidence presented. No woman should be called a liar and no man vilified as an abuser before a case concludes. That seems to me reasonable. Um, I get that big companies don't want to associate themselves with someone accused of rape or abuse. But ultimately, those people calling for cancel culture, those people calling for men to be dropped, they need to respect due process. It's not good enough to say this actor or this politician or this businessman has been accused of rape. I think common sense dictates that if there is a number of women making the allegations, it's more likely to be true. But still, accusations are just accusations. Ultimately, until he is found guilty in a court of law, I don't believe in punishing him. It's that simple. And by the same token, I don't believe in smearing women as liars just because the man happens to be popular. And that's pretty much it. That's how I see this. I just hope this case is a turning point. I agree with Douglas Murray that it should be an end to the Me Too era, like a bookmark on it. He actually said that before the outcome, but I think he's right. I mean, this era, Me Too, of just frankly, it has become a sexist witch hunt, in my opinion. I think it started off like Black Lives Matter did with legitimate concerns, namely that powerful men in Hollywood were abusing their position with vulnerable young actresses. But um, it did become something else to the point where even if actors said that, they themselves would find, they were almost blacklisted. Matt Damon said that, and he immediately was attacked by Twitter feminists. Immediately became this um, thing whereby all men had to prove their loyalty to the cause by just blindly following it. That was absurd. I mean, I suspect men in Hollywood over the last 4 or 5 years have had to tread very, very carefully. And that's the big downside with me, too. It's totally destroyed the relationship between men and women. Feminists will say, oh no, it just forces men to be more respectful. Really? Is that all it was about? I don't agree. I think it has created this dynamic where men have had to step on eggshells because now men will be thinking, can I even compliment a woman lest I be accused of something? That's wrong. Okay, I'll round this up, but let me know your thoughts. I think it's the right outcome. Um, there was one last thing. There was a nightclub in Edinburgh that apparently made some poster trivializing this about they had like Depp as a pirate and Heard with a patch over her eye. That's the sort of thing I'm talking about with the trivializing of it. It's, as tempting as it might be for some people to trivialize this, ultimately it's a sad situation. People shouldn't celebrate this sort of breakdown in a relationship. It's good that one partner gets away from a toxic relationship, but there's nothing good about any of this. It's sad. It's a sad situation. I just hope it's a turning point. That's all. And it has been a very important case for that reason.